Commissioners Gorig,
Yes.
Cotton, Hesner,
Here.
Heidner, Mulcrone.
Here.
Chairman Morris.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Good evening. The first item we have on our agenda is a public hearing for case 21-014, a petition filed by Vernon Hills Montessori Academy, Rhythm of Learning, LLC, for approval of a special use permit to allow for a daycare facility to be known as Vernon Hills Montessori Academy, to be located on the legally described property at 204 U.S. Highway 45, Vernon Hills, right out there. So, who's going to speak for the petitioner this evening? Okay. Is anyone else going to speak with you, or they're just here for moral support?
If you have any questions, then.
Well, the reason we ask is that we need to swear you in, so if anyone's going to speak, we ask you to come up front now. Okay, well, you're alone. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So we'll be two.
Why don't you identify yourself for us first, please?
Yes. Oh, okay. Yes, here I am, Margarita Schwetz.
Okay.
And
you are?
Alyssa Kowalczyk.
Okay, we ask you to raise your right hand and swear or affirm that this testimony you're about to give before this commission of the Village of Vernon Hills shall be the truth.
Yes.
yes.
With that, you are on.
Okay, so we start.
Yep.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. And my name is Margarita Schwetz again, and I reside in this local area from 1999. So I am an educator for more than 30 years. I'm author of 2 books about power of music in Montessori education. And from 2000, I started the program of like Montessori and music, but then we expanded to Vernon Hills building of Congregation or Shalom, and we are there already for 10 years. And obviously we grew over and we couldn't expand. That's a beautiful building there, but there's absolutely no way we can expand. And we got tired of saying no to people who brings us siblings. And that's why I'm happy to move to this area, especially we have something very unique because there's not many schools with a great emphasis on music, and we believe strongly that that helps children and builds the great foundation for learning for future, and improves their memory and everything. So that's why we stay on this for many years now. I even was speaking to Illinois Montessori Association, and I was speaking at the convention for all the teachers about music in Montessori classroom. So we are proud and happy of this. All our achievements, I actually can move, so all our kids, not just great students. I'm happy to have this summer 2 my former students working for me. So they all grown up in Vernon Hills, and I'm happy that I have great, so future teachers. I'm growing those kids. So like you see, so I do have the also music school in Hawthorne Mall, which supports me and helps me now. I don't have to do everything myself as I used to, like 20 years ago. So now I have a lot of teachers who can come to Montessori school and help with our programs. Obviously, like I want one more time to say, there's no school which combine great emphasis in music and being a daycare or Montessori. We are very proud of this. My team, all my teachers, most of them live in Vernon Hills also. Everybody will be happy to move closer because they are on this side. Many parents are also from this neighborhood, from this side. They're like, oh my God, it's going to be very close. So we are really happy about this. So this is my future director for this location will be here. And I know we have the very strong core values. We want to raise leaders in our school. And that's what we are being good at. And that's why I always say the music helps, the people to be more brave and survive in these times. So, we are happy about this. So to all our teachers on the picture, we always have the happiest kids. And this location, I feel it's a blessing. So I was telling right now, I was driving for 20 years and was saying that's a beautiful place, exactly Montessori because of nature and a great backyard on the back where we could have not just playground and a little garden and a lot of trees. Obviously, it's much better than we are in Congregation or Shalom building right now. So, Michael, you remember how we were trying to squeeze that playground on not even great, piece of grass there. So this location, obviously, very, very convenient. I will be happy that we can, provide for parents more activities during the week because at Congregation or Shalom, unfortunately, we cannot do anything. So we can't have, any parent night or celebrations. Like it's different due to their some certain, they have Saturdays and they have their own school there also every week. And here we will be open from 7 to 6, the same. And like we are not going to be open on Saturdays and Sundays, but possibly some parent night will be later, like we usually do this 7 to 8 p.m. For parents. And if there is any activities or like meetings or parent-teacher conferences. So we will work with our wonderful landlord then. So, and Miss Alisa, you want to say something about the school? So that's like we see this going to be really good because we are growing with the program of Rhythm of Learning. We have the school in Naples already. So this will be, I think, super great adding to community. Miss Alisa, you say something.
Well,
Yes.
you touched base with everything. Just want to emphasize on Montessori. There are a bunch of Montessori schools out here. There's a few down the road, but music is the education. So we provide Montessori and the music aspect. We do outdoor sports. We have sports. The soccer teacher comes and plays. A lot of outdoors and natural nature. So hopefully that helps.
It will help us, yes.
Helps. But that's all. Yeah.
Questions, please.
Any questions, anybody?
Are we talking about the site at all? Mike, because the question that I would have, if they have 60 students, we know that site has very limited parking. Is that something for a later time, Mike?
Yeah, actually, I was able to calculate that it meets the minimum parking requirements.
Then we're good.
And as a reminder, there was a variation put in place at the time that the synagogue was and the parking requirement, the office space that they'll be replacing, the parking calculation is the same as for the Montessori school. So they're in compliance with parking.
If they have evening events, like a parent night, then they may run into a parking issue.
Well, we could have parent night separated by age group. So if we did have toddlers parent night, we can have just toddler group come, and then on a separate night have 3 to 6 for primary. So we could also do that if needed.
And the only reason I ask that is this is a wonderful facility for that. It's just there's not really any shared parking nearby, other than coming over here, which you can obviously do that, or using the golf course.
Sure, they could use golf cars.
Yeah, but then you've got to
Village
walk, and there's a crosswalk with a signal, so.
So, yeah, good point. You'd have to coordinate with the landlord and with the synagogue that uses the other portion of the building for special events. It's a very good point.
And as I recall, the synagogue, and this is from memory, so it may not be accurate, they do not drive to get to their service, correct?
That's my understanding. Mike, but under the recommendations, there's a second condition, general compliance with the floor plans consisting of 2 pages, blah, blah, blah. How does that relate to, you have a number of classrooms, and depending on how you count them, it's a toddler, it looks like 1 or 2 after school, then a 3 to 6-year-old, and then an infant class, but only 2 relatively small bathrooms. How, if we approve this with that condition, how do the bathrooms get addressed?
The bathrooms would be addressed at the time of permit submittal, and we would address all the other building code requirements too applicable to this use, which is an I-4 use group. So we could, if you think it's appropriate, we could amend that condition.
And is this because of the nature of the school? Is this something the State Board of Ed or DCFS has to approve also?
They're licensed
Yes,
through,
we are licensed now, and obviously I will be following the
Sure.
guidance,
But
yes.
do they also have to approve the location?
they'll have to approve the,
They do not approve location, they will come
Occupancy.
when it's
They have
already,
to approve the
once
occupancy.
I'm approved here, so then I will be submitting the transferring of the license, and they're gonna schedule, there's a special routine on that, yes.
Maybe location was a bad word, I'm talking more about the facility.
Yeah,
They'll
yeah.
look at those two, the layout?
yes, sir.
Okay. And then for the parking that Commissioner Gorog mentioned, because part of the parking dead ends into it for pickup and drop-off, how does that get accomplished without
I'll let-
people running over each other?
No, first of all, our drop-off and pick-up, it's not exactly at the same time, because we are open from 7, and we have the first student coming at 7:10, and then at 8:15, and then at, parents
yeah,
are
some
dropping
drop
at
off
very
up until 9.
separate time, yes. And also at the end, after 4 o'clock, they start coming.
Yeah, and if I may clarify, if that's okay for the chairman, with this, and I'll let, if you could answer this question. What I'm used to with this use group with daycare facilities is the parents come, they park.
Right.
They get out of the car, they walk their children, and rather than queuing at a typical elementary school.
Okay. Right. Anybody else?
Yeah, the challenge is going to be getting out also in the morning, depending on which way they're going.
145.
Yeah, on 45. I mean, unlike Hawthorne Parkway, which is a breeze
Yeah.
comparatively, but you know what, you just have to be patient, and people let them in.
Mhm.
So.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Notices went out, we received no responses, it appears, from our packet.
Correct?
And we have the section 18.3, at least repeated provisions in our packet as well, which is part of the list submission. As this is a public hearing, does anyone from the public wish to speak with respect to this request for a special use? Okay, seeing no great rush to the podium, we can close the public hearing portion of it. Any other comments by the commission?
No, I think this looks great.
Yep.
Okay, what we have at this commission is a standing motion to recommend approval. So the motion would be to recommend approval of a special use permit allowing a daycare facility to be known as the Vernon Hills Montessori Academy, subject to the conditions listed in our packet. I would suggest that with respect to condition number 2, we amend it to have that at the time of building permit, the question of adequacy of bathrooms be addressed.
Understood?
Okay, anything else, anyone?
No?
If not, we need a second.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, we then need a roll call.
Commissioners Hesner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes,
Motion passes.
all
See,
right,
that was easy.
yep. So thank you very
That was
much.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Parking back of the building, like,
Oh, okay, yeah.
that's a big thing.
Yeah,
We usually, they could get like 40 cars.
It's something to just think
So
about.
I
That's
know,
fine.
that's why I said.
And that's good, you're right,
That's
you're
the building.
absolutely right. Because we tend to see the front, and we think of the front. And it's like, yeah, there's more to it.
And I also
Right.
have 4 employees working for me, where service days are always gone.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
No, that's
Yeah.
fine. Good luck.
Thank you, thanks. Nice seeing everybody.
yeah, but can you do that with? Yeah, but I just wonder if you can do that because of the age of these kids and stuff? I don't know. Okay, do you want to tell them what's next? Before you leave, before you leave, you may want to hear this. What is next?
From here, you'll go on to the Committee of the Whole agenda before the Village Board, which will be the first Tuesday in May. I forgot to look at that date. It's either, I think it's May 3rd or May 5th or something like that. First Tuesday in May, 7 o'clock here, Committee of the Whole. And I'll call you tomorrow morning and we'll discuss it.
Okay, great. Thank
Great.
you
Thank
so
you
much
very
for
much.
your time.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay, next we have a development review, case number 2022-02, an application filed by Dan Freitag, hopefully I pronounced it right, Premier Design and Build Group LLC, requesting the following: preliminary and final site plan approval, preliminary and final landscape plan approval, preliminary and final architectural plan approval, and preliminary and final plat of subdivision approval, which I guess is really a re-subdivision. The property is located across the street from Vernon Hills High School and east of 100 Lakeview Parkway. Okay, so who's going to speak here?
I'm representing Dan Freitag. He's with the same company I'm with, Premier Design Build. My name is Dale Carter. I'm the project manager for the construction of the project and took the ball from Dan. He's very busy, and so I earned that job.
Would you like us to punish him and make him come?
No.
No, okay. And you are?
And I'm Jim Woldenberg. I'm the developer and owner of the property.
Okay, got it. All right. This is a development review, not a public hearing, so I guess we don't need to swear you in. But I see we have a presentation that is up on the screens.
Right. So first, Mr. Waldenberg has a local business.
Yes.
In Vernon Hills.
Right. Heathrow Scientific, we're on Lakeview Parkway on the other side next to the Girl Scouts building. Been here for a long time, and I'm practically a resident of Vernon. I consider myself a resident of Vernon Hills, put it that way. So.
And so Jim is a repeat customer for Premier Design Build. We've done other buildings for him similarly to this that have been very successful. Tonight he told me he may have another one for us, and so it's a very good fruitful partnership, and so it's one that we enjoy very much to have his as a customer and a client. And so what you see before you is the architect's vision of what the elevations would be of the building. This is a 51,000 plus square foot precast building that has provisions for truck parking and access and loading in the back. It has provisions for office spaces to the front where the street would be. Parking for automobiles are in the front of the building and to the east side correctly, and all the trucks would be more or less hidden by the building in the back of the building, which would be the north side. And so you've got the packets in front of you. It has much more detailed information in the packets, but I can show you here that this is what we have for the architect's colored rendition. They're also included in your packet. This is the architectural working drawing of what the elevations are to call out the materials, placement of windows, sizes, relative scope and scale of the building to show that the proportions we believe are in keeping with the building facade. There is a basic foundation plan that shows the building. It's a big box. The two rooms in the front, one is an electrical room where the electrical service is going to come into the building. The other room is for the fire protection, which will also come from the street into the front of the building. As we're proposing and asking for this building to be right now is a speculative, we call it a white vanilla box on the inside. There's no tenant actually planned for this space at this point in time. There's no visions of occupancy without further development code drawings based on what the use group would be and the facilities that would be needed to support that type of use group for this type of building. And so we know that there's another phase to go through to get occupancy. This is merely for the concept idea to be, reviewed and passed, hopefully, and then take it to the next step where we could market the building and hopefully get a tenant so that we could generate revenue for our client and tax revenue for the community. And so everybody wins, hopefully. This is an overall site plan of the building. It shows some other things in conjunction with handicap egress and stairways and things like that. But you can see that there is parking for automobiles up front. There is parking on the right-hand side, which is the east, north is up. The street is to the front. There are some original trees that are there in the front of the building. We've gone through the first review for technical review, got some comments back we're going to meet with the appropriate people to ensure that if there's trees there that are appropriate for the project and should be safe, that we save them and work them into the landscaping design for the project. There's also a pond to the east that is existing. It's monitored, I believe, by the POA. We're in conversations with the POA to make sure that, you know, we keep the design theme that's intended for the other portions of the pond in like and kind with our shoreline that's just offside the parking there for the automobiles. That pond is a local stormwater management pond. Our stormwater does flow into that pond. We've submitted for the second review for the technical. We've gone through first review with Lake County, the fire department, all the other municipality departments. And so we feel good with the review comments that we had, that we've addressed those areas of concern with our second submittal, which was turned in end of last week. And so as we continue on, this is a civil engineering drawing that shows some technical aspects of the storm drainage and how the water's going to get to the pond. It has the entrances defined there on either side of the building, so truck flow would be can go in one side and then come out the other side, and the same thing with automobile traffic. And you know, it's pretty simple. The parking is well defined in the back where the trucks will be hidden by the building. And we have a very detailed landscaped plan, which was included in your packet, that calls out a very heavily landscaped project. One of the review comments we got on technical review is that they wanted us to eliminate some trees where some snow might be piled, and to possibly limit irrigation in some areas. And so we've addressed those comments based on their suggestions and incorporated those into this plan. We're studying what our options will be at the shore bank of the pond that will come more to fruition when we talk to the POA, get some input from them, and try to work everything together in concert with what the final design and the look would be. And part of this process then is the consolidation of 2 lots into 1 lot. And so that's part of the process, and that survey and re-subdivision plat of survey's been included in the technical submittal as well. So we think we have all the boxes checked for what would be necessary in order to, you know, comply with what the code intent is and the POA intent and the landscaping intent is out there, and still have a very nice successful project that everybody can hopefully hit a home run with. And so that's it in a nutshell. If you have any specific questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
Any questions?
I do. Total required parking is 41, you're providing 86. Is there any reason why we just don't land bank those and just make it green?
Well, that's a great question, and part of what all of the tug and pull on a lot of these things comes down to parking. And so there's different interpretations of the required parking spaces, the number of parking spaces. And so do you want to address that?
We also were engaged a consultant to do a parking study on the building, and among other things, the pandemic has had a dramatic impact on the amount of parking people use. And so the parking study came back. I believe we submitted that some time ago to the village. And it was really, we were going to build way more parking than was necessary for a building of that size. We're asking to build less parking as part of the parking study.
No,
You're double.
or more than what's there.
Oh.
I think there's a little blip. It depends on what the use of the building is. And so if it's a manufacturing classified building, it requires more parking, rather than if it's just a warehouse storage facility, it requires less parking.
Sorry.
And so what we try to do is we try to hit a conservative middle higher ground in order to be able to satisfy market requests for either plan so that we're flexible.
Okay.
We would love to not put as much parking in, but we think that it would be more advantageous long-term to put the parking in the front end
Has anyone reached out to the high school with any concerns for the bus, the loading and unloading for school days? Because this is exactly where this happens.
Yeah, no, we have not, but we will. We'll do so after the findings of the Planning and Zoning Commission, but in advance of us putting this in front of the board. They're aware of the project, but we haven't shared any of the details with them.
One question on the architecture, it's showing the faux wood accent cladding on the corners. There's no way of knowing what product that is from these drawings or what color.
Sure.
And you have very cool tones, and the rendering's showing very something orangey, and that might be a little subjective.
That's a great question. We've done this similar detail in another building already, and it's turned out very nice and met with success. And so it's a Trex product. And so if it comes down to aesthetics for color, we can get samples, and we'd be more than happy to submit them, you know, for review.
Okay. My only other comment was, there's kind of two front elevations to this. It's obviously the south, but there's also the east. And I do like the fact that you've dressed up the corners, and there is a view as you're coming southbound around the curve to seeing that back northeast corner. And I'm just putting it out to my fellow commissioners, if we think that's far enough away from the road and the curve that that's not very dominant.
So the building is, you know, I'm going to take a fly here. It's over 200 feet deep. It's set back from the lot line another 100+ feet. And then the curb is another 30 feet in front of that. So it's 300 and more feet from the back end. There's going to be landscaping and a pond.
Well, I'm talking about people who are traveling or walking from the north heading south as they're coming around the curve. You can see the back of the building and that corner. That corner essentially becomes a front to your building.
Well, I think right now,
corner.
you're exactly right, but right now they're looking at the side of the Italian tractor building, essentially, and there's no windows or really any landscaping on that building.
It's, being that it's a business development, I mean, and they have the unfortunate having the road curve around. I mean.
That wall, no.
This whole
As long
wall.
as they take care of it,
Just pointing it out.
it's a good point.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, we tried to concentrate the nicer looking things at the entrance elements rather than the back of the building, but you have a great point.
I know it's a spec building, but do you have an idea as to how many users would be in this building?
I might actually have to use it for a period of time.
Okay.
We're actually busting at the seams at Heathrow.
Okay.
But eventually we'll release to somebody. We're going to engage Cushman and Wakefield and find a tenant.
Was you looking for a single tenant in this building?
Single tenant would be
Right.
Disney World.
Ideal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ideal. It's presently set up now for 2 tenants.
Okay, right.
And that is the thought process,
Okay.
is that it would be 2 tenants if it wasn't a single tenant.
And because of the type of use you're contemplating, either warehouse or manufacturing or something along those lines,
Right.
and with the high school across the street, can you give us some idea how they might either work in concert or incongruent with each other in terms of, you know, the traffic, et cetera?
Well, I think in today's environment is that it's very easy to say that it seems as though more people are working from home, depending on what it is that they're doing. That would be more of a business related rather than a warehouse or a manufacturing related.
Yeah.
But, you know, ways to work in concert with the high school would be staggered shifts, you know, multiple times for people coming and going, cognizant of what the school is. I think that's a great question. One that would probably be better vetted out through the process, you know, in conversations with the high school.
With 8 loading docks in the back of the building and the traffic flow that you mentioned, I guess you're suggesting what trucks would come in on the east entrance, go through the parking lot, and then exit on the west. Because of that curve that's there, is that going to be either a near impossible, or is it going to be a problem from a traffic standpoint, people coming around the curve? And I know it's not a very fast speed limit.
Right.
But I live in town, I drive it all the time, and I'm sure anybody goes the speed limit there. you know, if we've got trucks making a left turn out of there and people coming around the curve?
You mean, they're gonna come in and go out the same driveway?
They
the
can
trucks.
come in and go in
Okay,
out the
so
same way.
They're not gonna go around the building.
The west?
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
Okay, but if you have to make a left turn and a truck out of that and someone coming around that curve, is that gonna be an issue?
I think we're far enough away from the curve because of the pond, that it's not gonna really impact us. I kinda have that situation now on Lakeview, because Lakeview,
Right,
as you
yeah.
know, is a big circle, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
And, sometimes trucks have to wait, but it's not really, I better not say this.
We'd rather have it come out on a traffic signal. Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury.
Yeah, you're not gonna go.
I think that it is workable with people exercising common sense. I don't know what else to say other than that.
We don't have
High
problems.
school students driving and common sense?
Well, I wasn't really referring to high school students
Okay,
driving.
fair
because
enough.
We all know high school
Okay.
students don't go in the same sentence with common sense.
Right, yeah.
Normally.
Okay. Mike, the way this is re-subdivided, the existing detention pond, which was on, I guess it was lot 10 or something, is now going to be on this subdivided lot. Are all the detention ponds in that park on individual lots, not on common element-type lots?
There's a couple that are on individual lots, some are within easements on privately owned lots, so it's a combination of both.
So I guess my question is, why is the lot line being drawn to include that versus to exclude it, the pond?
Well, I think what it was is it doesn't exclude the pond. I think what it is that there were two previous lots.
Right.
One which encompassed a portion of the pond.
Right.
And now we're conjoining it with the other lot to the west that did not have, it was not conjoined with the pond, and so we're making it one bigger parcel, 5 acre, and part of that bigger parcel now incorporates the other piece that does incorporate part of the pond.
But I guess what I'm asking, Mike, is why is the line there versus here? So the pond is on its own lot and this doesn't have a pond.
Well, the pond.
The pond shares with the other neighbors to the east.
And then there's another lot here.
I mean, I just don't understand why it's not that either.
I don't have.
Okay, fair enough.
So
Okay.
That's the way the original plat of subdivision was probably drawn.
Well,
would
I
that mean that you're only responsible for half the pond, for maintenance around the pond?
Yes. It's like if you own a piece of lake property, you only go out to a certain part of that, your
Right.
part of the lake.
In reality, the Continental Executive Park maintains the ponds, including that one.
But the landscaping around it, that you are only responsible?
We do ours, yeah.
We'll be
yeah,
installing,
yeah.
right.
The other parcel is gonna be sold in the near future to some developer, not me.
You mean the parcel to the east?
What? Yeah.
Parcel to the east
East and north.
and north?
What's that?
Okay,
I didn't say anything
Oh,
to you.
I'm sorry.
okay.
Sorry.
I have a question which I guess is for the commission and Mike, but you of course can listen because you're here. This is a spec building like this. There's a similar spec building like this on Milwaukee. There's talk of another building that's even bigger than this where American Hotel Registry was. Are we reaching a point where this use is been exhausted or we're going to become kind of like mattress stores?
Yeah, it's,
And so, I mean, yeah, this one, but then the next one, do we say, no, there's just too many?
yeah, well, go ahead.
I'm gonna just chime in here. First of all, Premier Design Build Group is doing this all over Chicago, metropolitan
Yeah.
Chicago.
Yeah,
And they are one of several groups that are doing it all over Chicago metropolitan.
Right.
And the question that you're asking is going to come into play at some point.
right.
We're not there yet, but this is a highly sought-after type of speculative building that is incredibly successful right now and has been, probably over the last 15 to 20 years.
This is a niche building that will very nicely serve a void in the market. Most buildings are 100, 200, 300,000 square feet. This is a very good use, in my opinion, very good use of this piece of property to fill a void niche in the marketplace that exists today.
What's happening right now, Hal, is the large industrial development areas like in
Yeah.
Elk Grove, they're moving out of there.
Yeah,
because they don't have the inside clearance, they're not big enough, they're not nice enough,
Right,
and they're moving to these buildings.
yeah,
Actually, they're moving to bigger ones, but they're moving to these. But your commentary and inquiry is right on.
yeah,
At some point in time, this is gonna run its course.
right, yeah. And I'm not suggesting that this is the one that's
I think it.
hit the wall.
Oh, no, no, no. I
Right.
think it's gonna run its course when the value of land and what it could be density-wise
Right.
starts to come into play a little bit more. But right now, it's hot, and we'll be successful.
Very well put.
Okay,
We can't build them fast enough
yeah, no,
at this point in time.
Right, right. Take advantage of it.
Oh, yeah.
right. But my last question is a comment, and it's, you don't have to respond to it because you really shouldn't, but if you want to, God bless you. Having lived in town for a number of years, having still live in town here and in other communities, I think that there's a serious problem with our ordinance in terms of parking spaces. I think they're way too narrow and they don't work anymore. And if this was going to be a retail, I'd vote against it just merely on that alone, I'll tell you. So here, because it's so overparked compared to any use, I don't have a problem with it. But if it was close, I'll tell you, Mike, I would vote against it because I think it just is unworkable anymore. Because we've moved from, driving cars to driving trucks, and they just don't fit.
That brings up a good point, Hal, and is the village ever going to look at that to maybe modify it? That, the size of the parking spaces and the world is changing.
Yeah, we've actually, as we're coming out of COVID now, we finally have in our budget, we really need to have our entire zoning code reviewed by a consultant, and parking is really the number one thing. You guys have seen that with the apartment developments where we're still requiring 2.3 spaces per apartment. That's just simply out, it's not consistent with, current demand. The good news about some of those parking spaces, I'm not sure if you're referring to Melody Farm or not, but
That's one.
but those regulations, and I agree with everything you have to say about that, those regulations fall under the Greg's Landing PUD, and they have and they are small, I agree. But your point is very well taken, yeah.
Well, Melody Farms parking in and of itself is not good.
Wait a second. I'm going to disagree with you. When we spoke of that in this particular room, we knew that that was on the shorter side of accommodation. But that was because of all the things that we had approved over by Home Depot, where the sea of parking is so large that it never reaches capacity.
Right.
But
No.
Go ahead.
And the fact that it was supposed to be and is a walkable development where you're not necessarily supposed to park right out in front of the place that you're going into. So it's about philosophy of that type of development, and they came in and they presented that. And whether we bought it at the time or not, it is functioning like that a great deal of the time.
I guess what I meant more is the navigating through the parking.
Oh,
And as I recall, we voted no every time they came to see us.
that's a different subject.
That's true, yeah.
But it's more than you're right, it's the navigation going through there and the size of the vehicles in these tiny little spaces. But you're right, but again, we voted no.
Yeah.
The navigation is tough.
It's different.
It's not good.
Yeah,
Well,
it's different.
maybe with gas at $4.50 a gallon, we're gonna transition back to smaller cars, who knows?
Temporary.
Yeah, who knows? But parking is always the hot topic of discussion,
But
everything.
But here, based on the uses and the number of spaces you have planned, that's probably, you could do every other space probably. That's
I
not
think
gonna
we're
be-
very generous.
Yeah. So, okay.
More generous than most.
So I digress, I apologize. Anybody else?
But it's interesting conversation.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other comments, We have a standing motion to recommend approval on this commission, and it would be a motion to recommend approval of the development as proposed, subject to the conditions of approval that are noted in our packet, which are conditions 1 through 12. And we'll do these each one at a time. First is, I guess we got to start with subdivision. Preliminary and final plat of subdivision, subject to the conditions. We need a second for that. Any discussion on the plat of subdivision? Hearing none. We need a roll call.
Commissioners Mulcrone,
Yes.
Hesner,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes?
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval of preliminary and final site plan, subject to the conditions of approval, which we've referenced. We need a second for that.
Second?
Any discussion?
Is that Gorig?
Yeah.
Okay. No discussion. We need a roll call.
Commissioners Hesner,
Yes.
Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes?
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Next, we have a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary and final landscape plan, subject to the conditions of approval referenced. And we need a second for that.
Second?
Any discussion? Hearing none, we need a roll call.
Commissioners Mulcrone,
Yes.
Hesner,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes?
Chairman Morris.
Yes. And lastly, we have a motion to recommend approval of the preliminary and final architectural plans, subject to the conditions. But before we take a second, are you suggesting we add anything regarding the northeast corner?
Just a coordination of, well, just coordination of the accent, the faux wood accent with the color scheme.
Any discussion on that before we make it part of the motion? Okay, hearing none, we need a second with that amendment.
Second.
Okay. Anyone want to discuss? No? So we need a roll call on that.
Commissioners Mulcrone,
Yes.
Gorig,
Yes?
Hesner,
Yes.
Chairman Morris.
Yes. Okay. And your next step is?
Appears before the village board, and we're, given the fact that it takes months to get tilt-up panels made and delivered, we're going to have them on next week's agenda on April 19th.
Wonderful, thank you very much.
Okay.
And thank you for the questions, and thank you for your
Thank you for your
support.
time.
Thank you and good
very
luck.
much.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the minutes of the December 15th, believe it or not, 2021 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. They're in our packet. We have a motion to recommend approval of those. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any comments? If not, we can do that by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Those are approved. We have adjournment unless there's something you'd like us to know about, Mike? Or
I have
someone has a question?
Sure.
Just an odd question. How did the parking lot ever get that big for the by Home Depot?
It was a requirement.
It was.
Really?
Yeah, and it's, you
That
know,
was before, really?
It was a requirement.
Oh, my God, sorry. I often wondered why.
Because remember, Kmart was a humongous big box.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's, oh, my God.
Yes,
You could land airplanes in it.
That's exactly.
most of the time.
No, that is really bizarre, and I've often wondered that.
it's, you know, it's always a struggle with staff, and we ask for a lot of parking studies now, really, because we can't really rely on our zoning code, frankly, but it's, you know, hitting that right level. I mean, under parking versus over parking, and it's, sometimes it's a struggle. We're learning, you know, better as we move along, but,
Yeah, that's a glaring over parking.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather see it that there's parking to be had, maybe not directly in front of where you're going, but I think optically it does show a more successful business. And I think it also optically takes away these humongous asphalt or concrete expanses that are, you know, that big ugly. So even though Melody Farm, putting aside there's dead ends and weird streets in there and stuff like that in the parking lot, I'm not all that bothered by the fact that it's, you know, crowded, because
No,
it's
you have
supposed
to
to be.
walk, that's fine.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an urban type,
Yeah.
you know, environment, and
There was.
that's what urban is.
There was.
Yeah.
There was. It was planned to be more of a urban context within a suburban
Right.
context.
Yeah.
now, what I learned from Melody Farm was to keep a sharp eye on how the spaces are distributed, because there's a parking field north of Lazy Dog
Yeah.
that a lot of people wouldn't know to just park there.
That's where I park every
You know,
time.
but it doesn't, and it seemed like if we had maybe had Lazy Dog a little
Yeah.
north or those outlets spread out, so we don't have a parking field stuffed into the northwest corner of the property, that might have served everyone a little better. For me, that was a lesson
Well,
learned,
and
but,
the burger place has plenty of parking by REI, that corner.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, they park by north of Lazy Dog and you're fine.
But
That's
even
our
that- but
executive
even the burger
parking lot.
place, you run into dead ends
Yeah.
if you try to go around it.
The problem was alignment of the intersection.
Yeah,
That's what created that area over there.
Yeah.
So, if they would have moved the streetlight to the north or to the south would have been terrible as
Right.
far as planning for any kind of restaurant or business.
Right.
It would have really cut them off from the rest of the development. But it was all about alignment.
yeah.
Yeah.
The only
yeah,
thing I'm upset.
yeah, if we ever, and I hope we do, if we ever have a restaurant or two there that is so successful that we need valet parking, that would be a good valet parking lot, you know, where they could stuff a lot of cars in
Perfect.
there. you know.
Perfect.
Yeah. Oh, okay, anything else we need to, should know?
No, sir.
Okay, then we have a motion to adjourn, we need a second.
Second.
Anybody opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we're adjourned, good night.
Yeah, these big warehouses, man, or these, whatever you call these things, they build them and boom.
Oh, yeah, the